In the dense and shadowed heart of rural West Virginia, nestled between two ridges that never quite make it onto most maps, lies a forgotten town with a name that rolls off the tongue like a bad omen. Marrow Creek, once a bustling mining community in the early 20th century. Marrow Creek has since been reduced to a handful of cracked streets, rusted street lamps, and rotting porches. Yet it is not its decay that draws whispers from nearby towns, it is the graves. 12 of them, identical, unmarked, save for a number carved into each headstone. And the story that every local tells the same way. Every time, because that's how legends become warnings. The story begins in 1977. It was spring. The trees had just begun to green, and the fog that so often rolled in from the mountain hollows seemed to linger longer than usual. At the time, Marrow Creek was quiet but alive. The mines had long since shut down, but the people remained, many of them, descended from the same families that founded the town generations before. They kept to themselves, lived modestly, and rarely made the news. But on the morning of May 3rd, that changed. 12 coffins appeared in the town cemetery overnight. No procession, no announcement, no names. Just 12 freshly dug graves with wooden caskets already resting inside them, and simple headstones marked 1 through 12. The town cemetery caretaker, Jed Wilson, was the first to discover them. He'd arrived just after dawn to tend the grounds and found the dirt freshly turned. He swore they weren't there the night before. He hadn't heard a sound. No trucks, no digging, just there. Word spread quickly. By noon, most of the town had gathered at the cemetery, whispering and speculating. Some thought it was a prank, though, who would go through that much effort. Others believed it was the government, something about test subjects or old war secrets. But as night fell, the town grew uneasy. Lights stayed on, doors locked, windows watched. The next morning, Jed Wilson was gone. His truck was still in his driveway. His breakfast sat uneaten on the kitchen table, but Jed himself had vanished. The town searched for 3 days. Police, dogs, volunteers. Even a few news stations came through. Nothing, no sign of struggle. No note, just absence. The town had barely begun to process it when something even stranger happened. On May 3rd of the following year, exactly 1 year later, 13th grave appeared. Same style. Same headstone, marked with the number 13. This time, people were scared. Church bells rang and the preacher called for a vigil. Rumors exploded. Theories ranged from cult activity to ancient curses. One woman claimed her grandfather. One spoke of a burial day, ritual practiced by early settlers. Another claimed to have seen shadows moving through the trees that night, long limbed figures, carrying something heavy. And then came the second disappearance. Mary Lane, a retired school teacher who had organized the town's makeshift investigation committee, failed to show up for church the following Sunday. Her door was locked from the inside, her bed untouched, her car parked neatly by the curb. Her house showed no signs of intrusion, but Mary was gone. That was enough. Families began to leave. Those who could afford it sold what little they had. Others just packed and drove off in the night. Within 5 years, more than half the population had disappeared, not by mysterious means, but by sheer fear. Still, those who stayed behind kept meticulous records. By 1989, the town's population had dwindled to fewer than 60. By then, there were 24 graves. It didn't take long for the pattern to reveal itself. Each year, on the night of May 3rd, another grave appeared. Sometimes a body would disappear the same night. Other times, days or weeks later. But always, someone vanished, quietly, without a trace. And always, a new grave was there waiting. It was as if the town had made a bargain it never remembered agreeing to. In 1992, a young woman named Abigail Horn returned to Marrow Creek after studying journalism in New York. Her grandmother was one of the original settlers and refused to leave despite the growing dread. Abigail saw the graves and smelled a story. She began documenting everything: photographs, audio interviews, historical records. She wrote letters to universities, paranormal investigators, even the FBI. Most ignored her. Some visited, but none stayed long. Her notes described strange happenings. Static on the radio that only occurred on May 3rd. Strange symbols scratched into the trees around the cemetery. Dreams shared by unrelated townsfolk, involving a faceless man in a black suit holding a lantern, and a repeated phrase found in old town records: "The earth remembers those it lent." In 1995, Abigail went missing. Her notebook was found on the edge of the woods. Her tape recorder was playing static, and in the middle of the tape, a voice barely audible whispered, "She asked too many questions." By 2000, there were 36 graves. Marrow Creek was no longer a town. It was a collection of ruins, watched over by those too old or too afraid to leave. But each year, without fail, another grave appeared, and another person disappeared. The graves remained perfect, untouched by time. No weeds grew over them. No animals disturbed the soil. Some said the graves were a warning. Others believed they were a prison. In 2010, a filmmaker named Evan Ross created a short documentary titled "The Town That Buried Itself." It was well received online but never gained mainstream attention. Ross later stated in an interview that several scenes had to be cut due to unexplained audio glitches and corrupted footage. He also admitted he felt followed while filming in Marrow Creek, especially near the cemetery. He never returned. The last known census in 2015 recorded just 11 residents. Today there are 48 graves, and still no answers. Theories abound. Some say the original town founders struck a deal with something in the ground, an ancient spirit or force in the mine that required an annual offering. Others believe it's a curse, punishment for a massacre long covered up. A few believe the graves are not graves at all but portals, keeping something buried that must not be unearthed. Whatever the truth is, it remains as buried as the bodies. And yet, the cemetery is still watched. Every May 3rd, a light is seen floating through the trees. A low hum is heard near the gravestones, and someone, somewhere, vanishes without a sound. This is the story of Marrow Creek, a town that dug its own deaths, and continues to do so.